Two companies, over $3.5 billion in combined funding. Backers that included Rupert Murdoch, Larry Ellison, Disney, and Goldman Sachs. And today, both of them are used in business schools as case studies in exactly how not to build a company. But here's what makes this comparison worth 20 minutes of your time. These are not the same kind of failure. One was built on a lie, the other was built on, honestly, nobody's fully sure. And that difference is going to tell you almost everything you need to know about how startups actually die. 2003. A 19-year-old Stanford sophomore named Elizabeth Holmes drops out to start a company. Her pitch, a machine that can run hundreds of medical tests, cholesterol, cancer markers, infections, from a single drop of blood taken with a finger prick. No needles, no labs, no waiting days for results. Just prick your finger and know everything about your health in minutes. She calls the machine the Edison, and she starts building the persona to match the pitch. Black turtleneck, deep voice, total secrecy. She's modeling herself quite openly on Steve Jobs. It works. By 2014, Theranos is valued at $9 billion. Holmes is the youngest self-made female billionaire in the world. 2018. On the opposite coast, a very different kind of founder is making a very different kind of pitch. Jeffrey Katzenberg and the guy who ran DreamWorks Animation teams up with Meg Whitman, the former CEO of HP, to build something called New TV. It relaunches in 2020 under a new name, Quibi, short for Quick Bites. The idea, premium, Hollywood-quality shows built specifically for your phone in episodes under 10 minutes. A feature called Turnstile lets you flip your phone from portrait to landscape without the video skipping a beat. No secrecy here, no mystery technology, just an enormous amount of money aimed squarely at Hollywood's best talent, betting that people wanted premium content built for their commute. Pause for a second and ask yourself, which of these two pitches sounds like the safer bet? Because the answer is about to surprise you. Let's talk numbers, because this is where the story gets interesting. Theranos raised roughly $1.3 billion, but it took over a decade to get there. Slow fundraising, round after round, built on a decade of secrecy. Quibi raised nearly $1.8 billion before it even launched, before a single subscriber signed up, in about 2 years. Quibi didn't just match Theranos' war chest, it outraised it, faster, in the open, backed by some of the most sophisticated media investors on the planet. Disney, NBC Universal, Warner Media, Sony, Alibaba, Goldman Sachs. Theranos Quibi total raised approximately $1.3 billion, approximately $1.8 billion. Peak valuation, $9 billion, $1.75 billion. Time to collapse, approximately 12 years, approximately 2 years. Here's the irony worth sitting with. More scrutiny, more experienced money, more transparency. And it still didn't work. Sometimes more due diligence just means a faster, more public collapse. So what actually happened at Theranos? The Edison device could reliably run only a small fraction of the tests the company claimed. Behind the scenes, Theranos was quietly using traditional lab equipment from other manufacturers. The exact machines it claimed to be replacing for the vast majority of its tests. Former employees would later testify that leadership knew about accuracy problems and buried them anyway. October 2015. Wall Street Journal reporter John Carreyrou publishes the first major expose. The story starts to unravel in public. 2018, the SEC charges Holmes and former President Sunny Balwani with fraud, alleging they raised over $700 million from investors using false claims. 2022. Holmes is convicted on multiple counts of defrauding investors. She's sentenced to more than 11 years in federal prison and begins serving her sentence in 2023. This is not a story about a bad business decision. This is a story about a deliberate, sustained deception, one that put unreliable medical results in front of real patients making real healthcare decisions. Now compare that to Quibi, because here's the twist. There was no fraud, no cover-up, no lie at the center of the company. Quibi launched in April 2020, directly into a global lockdown. Its entire premise, content for your commute, for the gym, for in-between moments. evaporated overnight because nobody was commuting anywhere. Subscriber numbers badly missed targets. Reports had Quibi on track for under 2 million subscribers in its first year, about 30% of its original goal. And it wasn't just timing. The app launched without the ability to screenshot, share clips, or cast to your TV. Features that seemed small but killed any chance of the kind of social buzz that mobile video lives on. 6 months after launch, in October 2020, Katzenberg and Whitman post an open letter announcing they're shutting the whole thing down. By December, it's officially wound down. The content library sells to Roku for around $100 million, a fraction of what was raised. Here's the most telling line from their own goodbye letter. They admit they don't even know for certain why it failed. Quote, they suspect it was some combination of the idea not being strong enough and the timing being catastrophic. And they say they'll never know for sure. Here's the idea that connects these two stories, and it's the one I want you to actually walk away with. Multiple post-mortems on Quibi argue that overfunding, not underfunding, is what killed it. Raising almost $2 billion before proving anyone wanted the product meant Quibi skipped the entire validation ladder that most startups climb. Small seed round, prove demand, Series A, prove more demand, Series B. Quibi went straight to the top of that ladder, which meant there was no small, sustainable version of success available to it. It was either going to be the next Netflix or it was going to die, and there was no in between. Theranos skipped validation too, just in the opposite direction. Instead of overexposing an unproven product, it hid the product entirely. Board members like George Shultz and Henry Kissinger added enormous credibility to the company without the technical background to ever catch what was actually happening in the lab. Two totally different failure modes. Same root cause, skipping the slow, boring, unglamorous process of proving something actually works before betting everything on it. One more contrast worth sitting with before we wrap up. Elizabeth Holmes is a convicted felon, currently serving a federal prison sentence. Sunny Balwani was convicted separately. Jeffrey Katzenberg and Meg Whitman face no legal consequences at all. Both are still respected, working executives in media and tech today. Quibi is taught in business schools, but as a strategy lesson, not a crime. That's the real dividing line here. Quibi's failure cost investors money and cost employees their jobs. That's real and it's painful. But Theranos' failure cost patients accurate medical information about their own bodies. One of these is a bad bet. The other is a betrayal. So what do you actually take from both of these, if you're building something right now? 1, faking it until you make it has a ceiling. At some point, the gap between what you claim and what's real becomes a legal problem, not a marketing problem. 2, money cannot buy product market fit. No amount of capital, star power, or content budget fixes a "why would I actually use this" problem. 3, skipping validation is expensive either way you do it. Hide your product like Theranos, or launch it at full scale immediately like Quibi. The lesson's the same. Test small and cheap before you bet big and expensive. 4, timing and format matter as much as the content itself. By most accounts, Quibi's shows were genuinely well made. The format and the moment killed it, not the talent. 5, a board full of famous names isn't the same as a board full of the right expertise. Theranos and Quibi will probably always get mentioned in the same breath. Two of the most talked about startup collapses of the last decade, but they're really opposite stories. One is a crime, the other is a strategic miscalculation. And if you're building something right now, you should be a little bit scared of both. If you want to see the next one of these, let me know in the comments which failure you'd want broken down next, and subscribe so you don't miss it.